If you We're going to record this for anybody who would like to go back and rewatch it, or if you, well, you wouldn't hear me saying this if you weren't on it, but if there's anybody who's not able to attend, who wants to go back and watch it later. Okay, thanks for joining. We are going to try and make this quick and painless, as we do with most of our trainings. Do some reminders, some new stuff, and then Amanda's going to do a peer place training. Go ahead. Uh-oh.
There we go.
I think, is that the first one? Okay. First one. Okay, this should not be new news to you, but as Laura is going to be looking at the CAPS background checks for this year's evaluation, I wanted to do a reminder about it, see if there were any questions. For those of you who have already done a CAPS background check, see how that went for you, just kind of talk about it in general. So this became a requirement on January 1st. Remember, this is not for volunteers. You should not be doing CAPS background checks for volunteers. This is in addition to the CBI background check that you already have to run. That didn't change at all. You do have to run the CAPS background check before you hire the person, but you do not have to receive the results before you hire the person. Also, you may still hire the person regardless of what shows up in the CAPS background check. Just a friendly reminder to put yourself on mute. You're getting some feedback. So that seems a little counterintuitive.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Before you run the CAPS background check, you do have to have a consent form that's signed, and then you go in, you run the check. You can hire them before the results come in. You can hire them regardless of what the background check says. And before you can do any of that, you have to go in and register your organization. Everyone should have already done that, so that shouldn't be a problem. Any questions so far? This is something that's going to be checked on, so if you have hired anybody new, or with the policy that you should have for who you're going to do this CAPS background check on, you know, just any thoughts so far, concerns that you've run into, questions? Okay, I think there's one more slide for this one. Oh, there's not. Okay, so I'm just going to make the assumption that if you have hired any new employees, that you did all the CAPS background check work before that person was hired, because I'm sure that Laura will ask if you have any new hires. She will ask for your policy that you've created around the CAPS background check, and then if you have hired any new employees who fall under who you would do a CAPS background check for, she will check to see the consent signed form and the CAPS background check results. Waitlisting services unavailable. This is another one that's not new, but Amanda had noticed that in all of the the OASIS reimbursement requests, no one was putting that there was a wait list, or they were not including any numbers on services unavailable. That may be the case, which is all right, but we all kind of have the assumption that it is unlikely that none of the providers over the past 6 months have had no wait list or nobody that would fall under the criteria of services unavailable. So remember, there is a difference between the wait list and the services unavailable. A wait list is if you are a care management provider and you do not have any more room available to add another person onto your caseload, that would be a wait list. Services unavailable is likely going to affect transportation more than anyone else. All that information, if you do have a wait list or services unavailable, you enter in with your monthly reimbursement request into OASIS. So again, nothing new, but just a reminder, since we weren't seeing any of those numbers, and that's probably not accurate. Questions about that? Just a reminder to put yourself on mute. We're hearing a lot of feedback. Okay, so this year's evaluations. We do this every year, as you remember. Last year was our first year with Laura. It actually, I mean, for those of you who went through it, was much easier than it had been in the past, so that's a great thing. We have been told by Laura that we should expect a similar timeline. She said there may be a few exceptions. Last year we had a desk evaluation, and she did the desk evaluation with us the last couple days of January. This year, that means we're having an on-site evaluation. I'm wondering if that means she's going to change our dates because she may not want to do a drive up here to do on-site evaluations during the end of January. But I haven't been told that it's going to be different, so I think we should all prepare for the same time frame. If she's going to come out in late January, early February, I would like to do my evaluations before. Last year I did all of them in December, and that means that we would be looking at documentation for October. Remember, none of this is in stone. I am only going off of what Laura said with it should be a similar time frame. On this year's evaluations, like I have already mentioned, she will be asking about the wait list and the CAPS background check. So be prepared to answer any questions around that. She probably will say, I noticed you don't have a wait list. Why is that? I've noticed, you haven't run anybody in the CAPS background check. Be prepared to answer that as well. Go to the next one. So I could not believe my eyes that nutrition was not on the SUA evaluation. I'm still going to have to do what I do every year with my evaluations. I'm going to come out and do an in-person evaluation with everybody, nutrition included. But the state, for the first time that I can ever remember working here, they are not going to look at transportation. I mean, they're not going to look at nutrition, which is amazing. They are going to be looking at transportation this year. So for those of you who remember going through an on-site evaluation with transportation, you kind of know what to expect. Sorry about this wonky formatting. These specifically are what she is going to look at. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just what I know for sure she's going to ask. So there will be a transportation questionnaire that I will send to you once I know when this is occurring. You'll answer those questions specifically for Laura. She's going to ask for a list of all of your employees who are drivers or volunteer drivers. She'll circle a few of those names. You're going to have to pull the information for those persons that will have the background check, that will have the license, insurance, and motor vehicle records information. She's going to look at all of the maintenance records for the vehicles, make sure they all are currently insured, make sure that they're going through inspections. You should be keeping all of this documentation. She'll pull it for probably a handful, or she might ask it for all of your vehicles. You'll need to be prepared for that. If she comes up to do the on-site with you, she will want to look on the inside of the vehicles to make sure it has the proper signage, which should include information about your ability to voluntarily contribute. And she will make sure that there is a lockbox in there for people to be able to voluntarily contribute. It's not actually in the P&P that you have to have a physical lockbox in the vehicle. If you don't, she's going to ask you about that to want to know how you are able to collect those voluntary contributions. She's going to want to look at program income documentation. She's going to want to see it from the point of where you put it into OASIS as your contribution to being able to see those individual amounts come in during that month and where it went into the bank account statement. And she's going to want all of those numbers to match what you requested in OASIS. And then she's going to want a copy of the complaint policy and your complaint log. None of this should be new. If you have any questions or concerns about that, let me know. But these should all be normal things that you're doing with your transportation program anyway. Any questions about that? We're sure people can talk, right?
I think so. It would take them a moment to unmute, though.
Okay. So that's all I have for evaluations this year. The new policy that just went into effect, this is for nutrition folks, and it's actually just going to be for Eagle County and Pitkin County because the new allowance for drop shipment meals, which a lot of us are familiar with mom's meals, kind of like calling any type of tissue Kleenex. There's many different providers of drop shipment meals. I just think that a lot of us are familiar with the company Mom's Meals, but it doesn't just have to be Mom's Meals. It can be any drop shipment provider. So now in the P&P, we are allowed to do drop shipment meals. There is a ton of work and paperwork, though. However, Pitkin and Eagle, if this is something that you feel would serve a handful of your home-delivered meal clients or people that you haven't been able to get on your traditional home-delivered meal program because of where they live, et cetera, this is an option for you. So again, you can only do the drop shipment meal if you do have a traditional home delivered meal program, and it cannot be the main method of delivery or the only method of delivery. This is really pretty much the exception to the rule. It has to be approved by the SUA and us before you can utilize this method of delivery. It might be helpful to just go ahead and get that approval from both us and the SUA if this is something you think you may use in the future, so that there's not a person who suddenly needs the services starting tomorrow, and then you have to go through this process. Who knows how long it takes. It does require you contacting the client every 2 weeks. You have to make contact to them, and it has to be documented. This is the only service where you can't just get them to fill out an assessment form, either in person or over the phone. You have to go out to their home twice a year between that July to December timeframe and then January to June. You have to actually go to their home. That's a big difference. And they actually can have little to no contact with the drop shipment meal entity. You have to place the order for them. This new program requires a lot of additional administrative time for the nutrition programs, because now you're going to have to travel to their home. You're going to have to contact them every 2 weeks. You're going to have to do all the meal ordering for them. There's just, it's very, very different from any other program. It was basically the only way that Leanna felt comfortable doing a drop shipment meal program. I pushed really hard for it. It doesn't look at all like how I wanted. But it is an option if you have clients who you can't serve with your traditional home delivered meal program and they still need that nutrition. Any questions? Two more new things we have 2 new voucher programs that rolled out July 1st. I am going to send you the flyers and all the forms that you're going to need to let your clients know about this, to get people signed up for it. But as you know, and as is not new information for you, 2 of the biggest needs that we have in our region, and really probably nationally, is the need for in-home services, whether that's just light housekeeping, errands running, meal prep. It could be bigger events like a chore program. Somebody needs snow removal, or their mattress flipped, or a deep clean to their home. Or personal care. I need help with bathing, with dressing, feeding, that kind of stuff. So we hope that the new in-home vouchers program will help that need a little bit in our region. So we will provide up to $1,000 per state fiscal year to help with in-home services vouchers. There is one additional qualification outside of being 60 or older or within our 5-county region, and that's, and this is written into the policy and procedure. This is not our additional requirement. You have to not be able to perform 2 or more ADLs or IADLs. Those are things like, transferring, making telephone calls, paying your own bills, vacuuming, those kind of things. Those are ADLs, IADLs. Or you have to have a cognitive or other mental impairment that requires substantial supervision. So that is the additional requirement to be eligible for the in-home services waiver. We also make you sign a waiver and release form because you can choose whoever you want to provide these services for you. It can be a friend, family member, neighbor. It can be a licensed home care agency as well. But in addition to the assessment form that they'll have to fill out, they also have to fill out another form that says, we don't do a background check on this person. This is not one of our employees. If anything happens, don't blame us. They will have to fill out an in-home assessment form twice a year. And, we'll track that information because we're running this internally so that we know that those forms, that they continue to be eligible by not being able to meet those 2 ADLs, IDLs. And they will complete a monthly services form, which is how they request payment or reimbursement for the services. And we'll have 50 vouchers for $1,000 each available. Make sure to mute yourself. We're getting some feedback. Will you show? Oh.
Do you have a question, Matt or Joe?
Yes.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Can you speak closer to the phone?
For things like outside deck or stair repair, like for entering the home, for their entrance into their home, if they have stairs and a small deck and it might be in need of repair, that kind of stuff too, would it do that?
It depends how extensive it is. I would think, tightening up some steps and a handrail is different than pouring cement and putting in new footers.
But if somebody wanted to use it for, obviously that wouldn't, we're just internal dialogue here, y'all, so bear with us.
I think what it would most commonly, the situations that I see where it's called for would be like where maybe they need some risers replaced and that kind of stuff. So not putting in a deck, but repairing a railing that may be failing or steps that may be failing or not trustworthy anymore.
I would think so. I think we could even look at that in terms of home mods to ensure safety.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to agree. I'm pulling up a policy and procedure manual that I created only back in May, but I don't remember what I specifically said about it. It does seem like that would fall under the purview of the chore because tour is for like bigger. Okay, yes. So I have included in my tour services installation of ramps, grab bars, widening of doorways, modification of bathroom facilities, electrical and plumbing repairs, or installation of specialized electric and plumbing systems to accommodate medical equipment. So yes, I'd put that under there, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'd say yes, Joe. When it comes to things that maybe are a little bit outside the box, I would prefer if you just run it by us first, just to make sure. But I would consider that part of the tour program because it's kind of more of a one-time thing and it's a bigger event.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. That's a useful program you guys are having.
Yeah, we've heard that it's a big need, so it just took us a while to get it all together. So Amanda, will you show? So we have flyers for both of these new voucher programs that I will send out to all of y'all along with the forms and stuff, so you have them to be able to give to clients. I literally got the last one about an hour ago, so that's why you haven't seen it before. But this is what one of those service agreements will look like. This would get sent in on a monthly basis. I gotta fix that. Will you scroll back up? So the client is going to put all of their information. They're going to circle whether or not it was homemaker, chore, or personal care. And then the verification of the units is normally people are using this thing for like light housekeeping. So let's say they hire their neighbor. They're the ones that negotiate the rate. And they're going to put, well, on the 2nd, this person was over for 2 hours. On the 19th, they were over for 5 hours. They're going to total it up. Again, they're the ones who choose the provider and choose how much they're reimbursing them or how much they're paying them. You can scroll down. You're going to have both people sign, both the person who provided the service and the client. That's how we verify that, our attempts to verify that the client is not getting swindled out of their money without having the services done. And then it gets sent to us. We either reimburse the client or we pay the provider directly. Remember, if we're paying a provider directly, if we reimburse them more than $600 in the state fiscal year, which could potentially happen with this program, that we're also going to send them a W-9 because we're going to send them a tax form. So any questions about that form? And then we have a flyer for it as well. And it's just pretty basic. Go down. We tried to not put too much information on there and just say, here's what's available, contact us or go on our website for more information and for the forms. Or if you're talking to them about it, you should have that information as well.
Okay. Hi, Erin. This is Lori. How are you?
Hi, Lori. Great.
Hey, I don't have a link. Did you guys send out a link or something for this?
Yes, it's on both the email and the agenda.
I have the agenda.
It should be join.me/Alpine AAA.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm on the wrong screen.
Okay, our other voucher program we're going to have is transportation voucher. So this could be whether you are a transportation provider or not. This is hopefully supplementing if you are a transportation provider, rides that you can't accommodate for whatever reason, they didn't call you soon enough. It is a request that you wouldn't, that you don't take people to. So I know a lot of people do medical trips, but let's say a person is like, I really want to visit my daughter. Well, you may not provide transportation to something like that. And this voucher program will hopefully solve some of those problems. So there's two different ways that the voucher program works. If a client has her own car and can go make that trip herself, we will reimburse her for the trip at the IRS rate. Currently, it's 58 cents a mile. If a person doesn't have a car or doesn't have a dependable car and they need someone else to take them, then very similarly to the in-home voucher, they find the person or the entity, and they negotiate the rate. So they could pay a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a taxi, an Uber, whatever that looks like. I guess theoretically, if you have your own transportation program and you have a vehicle that's available but can't take the person for that reason, you could kind of use it as a personal taxi with your own van. I guess I would have questions about why you wouldn't be able to accommodate them, but I'm sure that there are times that that happens, but you still have a van available and a driver. So those are the two ways that you can utilize the transportation voucher. The big difference, I think, other than also being able to reimburse for mileage for a person to drive himself or herself, is that we're really open to what it can be used for. So you can use it to visit family or friends, a loved one that could be in the hospital or a long-term care facility. You can use it to go to church or temple or mass or whatever. Use it to go to a restaurant, pharmacy, to run errands. On the form, as we'll show you, we do ask that you pick a reason why you are utilizing the transportation voucher, but we kind of wanted it to be more encompassing than just a medical ride or just like to the grocery store. Again, you got to sign a waiver and release form that if you choose another person or entity to drive you, that we're not doing background check, this is not our employee, and that if you are driving yourself, that you have insurance and a valid driver's license. It will be a basic assessment form and then a monthly services form. That's how you will ask for reimbursement or payment. And it's half the amount of the in-home services, but twice the number of vouchers. So it's good for up to $500 per state fiscal year, and we'll have 100 vouchers available. You want to show the form?
Yeah. And that will be split into 2 6-month amounts, so it's really only $50 the first 6 months and $250. I was thinking the amount of vouchers.
Oh, I see the amount of vouchers. Got it.
In-home.
No, transportation. So this is what one of those forms looks like. Pretty similar to the other one, just the information on the top. That's where you would pick what type of trip it is. And here's where you have multiple lines this is what we would have to have so that we know if you're asking for mileage reimbursement, we obviously need to know the number of miles because it's done by the IRS mileage rate. Or if you are having a neighbor or friend drive you, that information is detailed as well. So again, the client signs, the transportation provider signs. If it's not a self-drive, you send it in to us, and we either pay the provider or we reimburse the client. And then we have a flyer for this one as well. Just briefly details the 2 different ways you can utilize the voucher and then the contact information. So any questions about vouchers or anything else? I'll follow up with an email to everybody with this information, and we'll also put it on our website. But it is live now, so you could start sending people right now if you know that there's a need. That's all I had. We'll pass it over to Amanda for Peer Place.
Okay, this is hopefully going to be a quick and painless overview, quick tips and tricks for Peer Place. first off, we are finally getting some new reports. It's been slow in coming. One of the first reports that they completed was on assessments, and people entered into the system without assessments. There is a report for assessments and a report for when renewals are due, the 6-month reassessments. And that will be coming out shortly to make sure everybody's up to date. However, what was very interesting was that what they're counting as an assessment, they're actually counting on some cases at requiring 2. There is this, as you are just entering in a new person, this basic consumer intake. If that is not completed, it believes an assessment is not completed. And it is super easy. Let me pull it up here. So you're going to go through and you're going to search for your person. Well, we've been having some technical stuff, so there we go. Okay, so we find her. As we're going through, even if she was a new client, we'd go through our tabs, go through. This tab here, this basic consumer intake, needs to be completed for each workflow that she is a part of, or they believe hasn't been an assessment done, even though we've gone and done a congregate meals assessment. So this is our material aid program. Oh, can we restate where the additional forms are for the in-home services and transportation? We'll go ahead and email those back out in a follow-up email with a copy of the PowerPoint. The transportation voucher services and the in-home voucher services.
Yeah, I'll send it out today.
So you have to do new, and this seems totally silly because there's only 3 questions asked on this, 4 questions. The date, client information, and you have to provide, is the person visually impaired, cannot be corrected with glasses, yes, no, or unknown? What is their income range? One of these, or refuse to answer. And for some reason, it is now no longer realizing that if it's a household of 1, there is no spouse, so you'll need to answer this question as well. And then save and exit. And that counts as the basic client assessment. We still have to do and enter any in-home assessments or nutrition assessments. So if this were a nutrition workflow, you would still register her, open up your registration, and enter in, I don't know why that didn't show up. Apparently that workflow doesn't have an additional assessment. I apologize. We'll go ahead and do a congregate meals workflow with her. Still learning. we've got some hiccups. So if here's the client information screens. If they're a nutrition provider, you still have to register the client and complete the congregate or in-home assessment for home delivered meals. If they're case management, you still have to complete the in-home assessment. This is in addition to those assessments. And just as a quick reminder, the nutrition questions are kind of hidden for the nutrition assessment. You're going to go into the consumer in-home services assessment area, and the nutrition questions are this NSI, and this is for nutrition assessment and in-home assessment. And the questions are no first, then yes, which is why our assessments are written that way, so it should be easier to enter. But they're hidden under NSI. I don't know why. Let me see if we're up and running here. Nope. It looks like it's just too much for my system to run all of this at one time. So we'll just go through it with PowerPoint. If you have a question, give me a call. We'll do a one-on-one. So the deceased relocated consumers. I get a lot of questions about what to do if somebody passes away, somebody moves away, somebody goes into long-term care. It is a two-step process, and you must do step one for all of the services workflows that client is receiving. You're going to go into Encounter History, Client Registration tab right here, and then go into the Closing box. After closing, and you will put a reason why they are closing. They're moving, they've passed away. That's the first step. That is the step that makes them inactive in Peer Place for that service. The second step of changing the screen message, which is that first screen, the client profile, the basic demographics, client screen alert, where it just gives a little red message up at the top where you enter client screen alert, duplicate, deceased, relocated, and the date. That does not take them out as an active client of the service. It just posts a little note to let you know what's going on. So 2 steps. Each service, you have to shut them down individually, and that's in the client registration under closing. Then go back to the very first screen, put a little note to let people know they've been closed out, what the date is, and that should be great. And here's what the little indicator looks like after you do both steps. And that is all I have. Do we have any questions? I know that was a little chaotic. I had hoped to be able to walk through that with the system, but it was a lot to ask of it, I guess. Okay, any general questions?
I'll follow up with an email today with the voucher transportation info, and I'll include the slides. You all know how to reach us if you have any questions or thoughts afterwards, and we appreciate your time today. Thanks, y'all.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.